Hello and welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst of horror movies of all time and have a lovely talk about them. And then sometimes we get together with some filmmakers, talk about what they're doing to make the world a little bit more horrific. And this is just one of those occasions. I'm here today with director Samuel Clemens. Sam, how's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me on. It's such a pleasure to be on the podcast. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, thank you for getting in touch and putting some time aside in your morning to come and join us for a chat.
No, so
Eagle-eared
instead of
listeners.
Christmas shopping, I'm doing this, which is
Yeah,
great.
much more pleasurable,
Yeah,
I
much
hope.
better. Yeah, gosh.
Yeah. Eagle-eared listeners, or whatever the auditory hierarchy is for listening, may have heard us talk about one of Samuel's films in one of our videos recently and in the What We've Been Watching section. You're the director behind The Drowned that we enjoyed recently.
Yes, yes. We wrote it and directed it, and sort of helped produce it as well a little bit. It's one of those, it was my debut feature, so it's sort of pulling in lots of favors from everyone that I've known over the years to try and get a feature off the ground, which was a small feat. I mean, every time I think someone makes a movie, whatever people think of it, it's always a miracle. You're like, well done, you've managed to convince a group of people to give you money to make something, and you do your vision and get it out there. It's sort of, it's a minor marvel every time. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the kind of filmmaking I love to hear about. I love to get people on to talk about because in a world of some films, no detriment to the film themselves, but when so many of the big films that get a lot of promotion, a lot of advertisement are effectively babies of corporate synergy, it's wonderful to hear the stories of people who are out there grinding through the process of making a film because you have to inspire individuals and smaller groups of people to get involved with its creation. We'll stick a pin in the drowned for a little bit. Maybe we'll have some sort of out of body time skip experience ourselves, and we'll come back to that. I want to go into the not so distant past, though, not the ageless horrors that you're facing, but just the countable aged horrors of going into your childhood and understand where did it all go wrong for you to become drawn into the world of horror.
well, I mean, I sort of my father was a writer, quite a successful writer, and so I grew up sort of. I won't say in the industry in the broader sense of it, in terms of I wasn't on sets and all those kind of things, but like I was surrounded by lots of his friends that were in the industry. So sort of like stuntmen and directors and actors would come over for dinners and things. So like I think quite early on, it felt like this was a career that was possible because people around me were successful in it. Even though it was completely. I mean, no one. I mean, I think I was the only person at school who had a parent that was in the film and television industry, so that was quite unique at the time in the 80s. Um, but I sort of, because I grew up around it, I kind of, that's obviously I was like, well, this is so much more exciting than being an accountant or whatever. Like from my perspective, I just was totally romanticized into it, and it was normal. So my dad would show me and my brother movies, like, and I didn't realize I was probably getting an incredible film education without knowing it. And at that time, obviously, no one was, film was not really, or in any way, a subject that you could study, that you could really, sink your teeth into. Certainly, secondary school or anything, or even there's no clubs or anything afterwards. There was nothing. There's no like movie night, film appreciation. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. So it was just sort of so looking at films and TV were viewed as a, I don't know, a distraction from schoolwork. So, but I was like, this is so intoxicating that I wanted to be involved in it, and also having people around me that were in it made me believe that it was kind of possible. And so, um, when I started to learn, obviously that's what Dad did, and started learning what his his what he'd done and some of the credits and things that he'd worked on. I suppose most famously the Avengers. He sort of wrote. He was sort of the showrunner really from the Diana Rigg era, cast Diana Rigg and created Emma Peel and the Professionals later on, and then the Persuaders and Danger Man and things like the Golden Voyage of Sinbad for movies. Blind Terror was a movie that he did with Mia Farrow. Um, and soon the darkness, and then some Hammer horror movies. And I started sort of, as I was getting older, looking at some of the some of those movies as well. And I loved, I grew up watching film. I mean, it's terrible. We obviously um, limit our children for what they can watch now really much more vehemently, I think. I mean, like, I can tell you this because I went to LA when I was about 9 or 10 because dad was doing something there, and it was the only time he was away for a long extended period of time, so we went over to see him, and that was an incredible experience. It's like a 10-year-old going to Universal Studios and all that kind of stuff. um and yeah, when going over there, I saw things like, I remember Terminator 2 was being filmed out
Wow.
behind our hotel. We could see them doing it, and I was just like, "This is amazing." And so I just couldn't really believe my luck going out there. But the point was that my favorite films at like 10 years old were Predator, The Terminator, Aliens, and RoboCop,
A
and that's
good, solid
yeah.
upbringing. Excellent work.
I mean, and I met oh my God, what's his name? The actor that plays Billy, Sonny Landham.
Oh,
I
wow.
met him in our hotel that we were staying in. He obviously came in for a drink, and I had no idea, obviously, that he was a complete, lunatic psychopath at the time. And I ran up and went, Billy, Billy, as a 10-year-old. And he obviously thought, why is a 10-year-old watching Predator? But he signed a little napkin for me. But that tells you sort of what I was watching at the time. And so, like, I, you know, I was probably quite used to quite adult films because dad would say, you can stay up if you want to watch something. If you want to stay up, you can stay up, but you're going to have to watch what I watch. So if
Yeah.
it frightens you, then that's your problem, and I'll say no.
Giving you the choice. Like you have to promise not to have nightmares and get me in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was, so I think I just grew up loving film, and watching things from Harold Lloyd all the way, up to sort of, I show him new films and all that kind of stuff. So it was a real, it was a cinematic upbringing, let's say, and films were very much revered and discussed, and picked apart and argued about and all that kind of stuff. So I love film of all genre really, and I think that horror. Um, I think, from a business perspective, is probably one of the easiest films to, not easiest film to make at all, but easiest film to probably try and work in and sell, because you don't have the problems of having to have a star attached to
Hmm.
make the film. I mean, obviously they do now, and the Blumhouse effect has obviously changed things quite dramatically, but a good concept film, a good premise is all you need. So I think for first time filmmakers, it made sense. And obviously lots of the Sam Raimis, even the Coen brothers, Blood Simple is not a horror, but is it's quite graphic and violent and all those kind of things. And I think that having that sort of more exploitative filmmaking is probably, or Peter Jackson or any of these people, um, uh, you know, I think it's a good route in to making something and being able to sell it. And obviously, I'd made short films before that weren't horror. I'd made sort of dramas and comedies and things, and a thriller. And then I suppose the thing that really made me think about horror in one way was we made a short film called Surgery,
Hmm.
after my father passed away. It was the last idea that he had, because we were going to make a feature at the time, not The Drowned actually, and he said, well, maybe it'd be a good idea if you make a short. I was like, okay, cool. Well, let's what can we do? And he came up with an idea in about 60 seconds, and I was like, that is hideous. Let's do
Let's
that.
do it.
Um, and then he passed away, and so it became our sort of our tribute to him to make it. And the film did really, really well on the festival circuit. It went all of the major horror film festivals, Scream Fest and Austin Film Festival, all those things, and Fright Fest it premiered at, and all those things. It won quite a lot of awards. And it was so nice that it sort of did so well. Even it was definitely the most horrific thing that he'd come up with, and I wrote the script based on his idea. But it really opened up my world into the possibilities of working in horror, and also the horror genre and the audience that are just so prevalent, and so
Hmm.
loyal, and just there, and just love a horror, a bit like sci-fi, I suppose. But I think horror is stronger than really as an audience than sci-fi.
Yeah, I think horror in particular, you get like wonderfully engaged audiences who, and I know there's variations on a spectrum like anything, but I think in general, horror audiences are the people that will love your work. If they find something that they love, they will latch onto it and they will defend it fiercely. They follow the creators and the, in front of and behind camera talent that they really like, and they will put you on that pedestal forever. I mean, certain elements of sci-fi fandom, I don't think there's anyone who hates the thing they love more, in some circumstances. But horror does seem to have that wonderful community aspect to it as well. With one another as much as it is the filmmakers. I think it's a nice genre to be working in.
I agree, and sort of having gone to Fright Fest over the years, obviously there's the major film festival in the UK. There's lots of similar faces you see every year, and it's sort of nice to catch up with everyone and also see filmmakers making their shorts and then going into features, and so there's a few of us that have kind of come up together a little bit, and we bump into the same people, which is really nice. It's just very supportive community. So when it came to making The Drowned, which was previously called The Waterhouse, that was, it felt like a natural progression from Surgery. I kind of wanted to move slightly more into a kind of thriller genre in a way. I wanted to sort of hybrid and cross genres a little bit. I didn't want to be like a Surgery is an out and out horror.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's and I wanted to sort of see if we could blend genre a bit so it kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit, and there's one thing and then it becomes another and all those kind of things, which is a massive risk, because it's not like this is completely a horror, or this is completely a thriller. It's a kind of a bit of both. And I think that I thought as a debut it would be you've got to take a risk because you only get it once,
Yeah.
and so that was the I suppose, I know we weren't talking about it, but that was the journey into that,
Yeah. No,
into
it makes perfect sense. Before we leave Surgery in our rear view, is
Mm,
that anywhere available that people who are interested could still go and watch it today?
absolutely, yeah, it's on our YouTube channel. So if you go to Take the Shot Films on YouTube channel, we go into the videos. um Surgery is there. It was, I think we had it on Crypt TV for a long time, but now we have it back on our YouTube channel, and yeah, it's there to watch. There's a little retrospective afterwards with some of the actors. Sadly, Nicholas Ball, who's the lead, he passed away afterwards, so quite soon after our interview, so there's a little chat with him as well about making it at the time. But yeah, no, it's on there. It's 10 minutes of pure horror. Yeah,
We'll get
apologies
it.
in
We'll get it
advance. It's
watched.
yeah, it's quite rough, but it's I think it does what it says on the tin on
Yeah.
that one.
And you're talking about this evolution and the shorts. It feels like increasingly big names and big studios are taking inspiration from incredibly successful shorts. And, I know that some creators choose to do it themselves. They do a short as a proof of concept and then bring it themselves into a feature. But we're even seeing the big money spinners and the big names looking for inspiration from these short filmmakers. I think the latest bit of news in the last week or so we've seen, I think it's Sam Raimi and Jordan Peele as a joint, maybe looking at a feature of Portrait of God, which I'm not sure if you've seen, but is a
No, I haven't.
phenomenal short. Oh, if we're swapping shorts to watch, I have no responsibility for it. It's just one I like. But Portrait of God is a terrifying 7 minute short where, well, I don't want to spoil it. Go and watch it. It's
I would go absolutely go do
a
it. It's
really good a really good 7 minutes. I mean, I'd argue, does it need to be a feature length? It's as effective as it needs to be as a short, but it's really interesting to see these things picking up and evolving. But speaking of features being created, let's dive back into The Drowned and your journey there. So, what I enjoyed about The Drowned, not just saying this because you're here, you can hear me talk about it on previous episodes as well. I like the meshing of the genres. It really struck to me about similar things that I've really liked, where you get to have some intensive dialogue in some parts which aren't necessarily tied to a particularly violent event or talking about something scary. There's a great moment in the film that I enjoy, which is it's just about there being secrets and two different parties when they're playing their game of two truths and a lie, like really scratched that same itch for me as that films like House of Darkness did a couple of years ago as well, where before anyone is screaming, before anyone is bleeding, before anything else truly overtly horrific is happening, there is such an intensity of conversations. It's like when you're watching a soap opera and someone's shoplifting and they're going to get caught, and you have that horrible feeling of, you're not in danger, but I don't like this. So when it comes to that, like how were you, how did you go about blending those genres? Were you literally thinking about the tone of the film? Do you look literally percentages of the script? How did you go about meshing those two things together?
I mean, it was an interesting thing because it was. I mean, I'll do this very quickly, but we were planning to make another film, which is the following, which is the film I'm going to do after the Drown, which we're in sort of casting stage at the moment. We were going to do this before, which is a play that I directed of my dad's on stage, which I loved. It's one of my favourites of his plays, and I was looking to adapt it into a film, and we got pretty close, and we were going up and down the country because of COVID. We were like, we're never going to be able to travel. The film is set in Provence. It's a straight sort of thriller, pre World War II thriller, but we just thought, well, we're never going to be able to go anywhere, so let's try and see if we can. Maybe change it to northern France and go up and down the country. And we tried to find something that looked right, and we couldn't, and so the project sort of fell apart. And we had I booked all this time off work to make this film. I'd kind of committed, we're gonna do
Mm.
it no matter what, and it fell apart. So I had all this time, and I was obviously licking my wounds a little bit, going, well, what am I going to do? I can't go back and say, hey, all that work I said no to, can I have it back again? And obviously not going to happen. So my partner said, why don't you write something else? And I was like, yeah. That didn't take me the whole of COVID to do that film or whatever, to put it together. But I just thought, you know what, I didn't want to be the guy that sit there talking about making films and not making one. And so I just thought, well, this is the time frame you're given. I'm used to having no time, no money, no resources for many projects that I've worked on, whether that's a short film or in theatre. I've done lots of theatre in, like, rep theatre and audio dramas in no time as well. And so I thought, I'm quite good at doing things for very little. So I thought, well, this is an opportunity rather than, like, I don't know, something like a detrimental sort of, look at my career that, oh my god, I'm not going to make this film. So I just thought, well, let's see what we have. And I remember Dominic Villiamy, who plays Matt in the film, socially, because we worked together as actors before, over the years, and we're sort of close. And he'd mentioned that this house that he used to stay at when he was young was really creepy, by the sea, and like he never liked staying there. He'd sleep in his car and all that kind of stuff. Thought it was haunted,
Wow.
those things. And I was like, great, where's that? And so I basically recce'd it literally the following day. I called the person up, who owns the house, and I went to see it the following day, and and I had the kernels of an idea, and I thought that it would be nice to start in one place, like a kind of heist place, and then move it into possibly a horror. So there was a really wonderful French film that I loved, called The Page Turner. I don't know if you've seen this film.
I haven't, but it'll be going straight on my list.
It's a great film, and it's directed by a composer, and it sort of feels like an aria. It sort of builds in intensity as an aria would, and that sort of that that idea. Obviously, I had Sam Raimi, I had Evil Dead in my head, I had The Shining, which we all obviously probably love, and I just thought I want it to feel a bit like a piece of music, that it starts slowly, and it just, and the idea is that the film would get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster to the end, so it just continually speeds up. um, I thought that would be interesting for pacing, and I thought that that might help going from one genre, sort of a more, I don't know, a bit of a slow burn, sort of thriller genre, where you're trying to work out what everyone's ties are to each other and what everyone's loyalties are or not, and start fracturing those. And that takes a bit of time. It's not something you can do really. I don't think you can do that quick. I think you need to build the relationships to then earn the right to sort of mess them up a little bit. And so I knew that the film was going to have to start that way, and then go the other, and then when shit hits the fan, it all goes crazy at the end. And I I thought it would be interesting. So there was two. There was that part of it, and then there was the Greek myth part of it.
Hmm.
which I was like, you know, I wasn't particularly very academic at school at all. But one subject I really liked. I think I did it as a bit of a. So you can see my cat there now. He's God knows.
Yeah.
Um, uh, was classical civilization, and in that you do lots of, you know, it would just be, you know, reading the Iliad or the Odyssey and talking about all these stories that I grew up kind of listening to, like in storyteller tapes and things, kind of the Minotaur and all that stuff, and so I really love those. And I just thought, you know, we've had all these horror films, and I just thought the what would happen if, you know, they were kind of real now? What would that look like? What would that feel like? And I thought that, well, I don't want to ruin the film if no one's seen the film, but I wanted to take this particular myth, also look at the mythology of this sort of creature or creatures, and see if I can weave in a little bit of truth to all of the stories. So there's a nod to all of the you know, whether they're, you know, in the Odyssey or, you know, or whatever. I don't want to. It's really hard not to talk about it without
I
talking.
know it's so
Yeah,
difficult to like to go into it. You know, we'll say very quickly before we take
yeah,
another run at doing it without spoiling it. Go watch this. It's available in lots of places online now, globally, right? You can watch it
yeah,
on
yeah. It's
streaming
on
services
Apple.
of choice.
It's on Apple, Amazon, Sky Store, Rakuten, Virgin Media, and YouTube Movies. So
There
you
you
can
go. If there's
rent
a
it there.
button on
And
your
anyone,
box for it, then you can find it.
yeah, please do, and support independent film, because that's I mean, independent film needs as much help as it can possibly get,
Yeah.
particularly probably now with the Warner Brothers Netflix merger on the horizon. So yeah, so it's hard. I mean, I don't know if we can spoil it, or if you want to, if we want to.
I mean, your baby, Samuel. If you want to give into spoilers, we can give people a spoiler warning and say, hey, before Samuel says anything else, if you're going to watch this and you are spoiler sensitive, give us a pause. Come back to us after you've watched it.
Yeah,
Right, you're in the clear,
maybe.
Samuel. Say what you like.
Okay, well then, you know, so the idea was, I thought the idea of the sirens was such an interesting one, because it's they're alluring, they're sort of hypnotic, cerebral in a way, and it sort of reminds me of almost the earliest type of vampire. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? That kind of mesmerizing sort of thing. I think, you know, for me that felt like the earliest version that we have of that. In a very, they're very different, but I think, I'm sure there's a kernel of the ideas that come from some of that. And so whether you're looking at the naiads, the river naiads, or you're looking at the sirens themselves, I just thought, let's have a little bit of a kernel of truth of all of them. But if they've been dormant for 2000 years, what's kind of happened, and how have they survived, and those kind of things. And obviously I don't answer any of those questions, but I was answering them in my head before I started writing, to hopefully give it a little bit of a weight as you're going on. So I was, at the time we were going, I knew it was sirens. I knew that when I got to the house, I went, this is such a bizarre house and so isolated, like just buried into the shingle. And I realized that I didn't realize this at the time, but Danny Boyle had shot there. They shot. I don't know
Wow.
if you've seen the film Yesterday, um, but the film about the Beatles that don't
Yeah.
exist, where Robert Carlyle is playing John Lennon and where he lives, and he goes and visits him at the end of the movie. It's the same house, and I
And
didn't realize.
where in the world is it? It's such a stunning location.
It's in a place in Ipswich called Woodbridge. It's sort of near there. It's right down on the beach there, and it's a beautiful place. I think you can rent it, stay there. You can go and
It's incredible. You could have told me it was in the wilds of like the far north in a Nordic country, and I'd have told you, yeah, checks out.
well, I felt like that was one of the. I thought this feels a bit timeless and a bit sort of um placeless. I was like, you
Yeah.
know, some people think, oh, this is definitely England. Some people might go exactly what you said. Maybe it's not. Where are they? And that was the whole point, was not to sort of mention kind of where they are, to allow. And also that was one of the other things I wanted to do, was leave enough ambiguity that the audience could fill in the blanks and come and participate a little bit about what they thought about, you know, particularly with the ending and everything. I wanted to inspire conversation. I obviously have my ideas, but I'm so interested when people tell me what they think, about the film, and they've got theories about it, and no one's wrong. It's amazing. It's just I'm like, well, that's much better than my idea, or that's a fantastic idea, or, and yes, I can see it there. But once I knew that I wanted to tackle the sirens, there was, and we had such a small budget, but the shot that it all laid upon was the one near the end where Michelangelo Fortusi's character Paul is being sort of dragged into the sea at the end, and we see them all stood on the water, all three of them. And I was like, if I can do that shot, that's the whole premise of the movie. I've got to get to that. That was the money shot at the time, when I was, before I'd even written it, before I was thinking about it. That's the image I want to stay with me, to for the inspiration to write it, and hopefully once we've shot it, for people to hopefully remember maybe that shot from the movie. I mean, it might not be, but that was the catalyst for me to push forward with it. And then it was, what have they stolen? And there was lots of back and forth. Could it be money? Would it be Bitcoin? Or we went all up and down the
Yeah.
just thinking about it and going, this is, no, it's got to be something more timeless, and it's got to be, because that's the film plays with time. It's quite dramatically. So I immediately thought it should be something, so an antiquity of some kind,
Yeah.
and I was racking my brain, and this is totally serendipitous. One of those lovely moments at my parents' house, in the downstairs bathroom. It's been there my entire natural life. I walked in to use the bathroom, and on the left there's a mirror, and there's a little mural in the mirror, and it's the painting that's in the film. It's Hylas and the Nymphs by John William Waterhouse, and it was like it was calling me. We're here. We've been staring at you the whole time.
Your whole life.
And what was funny is I'd started developing the story, and the story was kind of already the story of Hylas and the Nymphs. And so the movie is a sort of modern retelling of that tale. A little bit like, I always think it's like Jason and the Argonauts, where Hercules gets off the ship to go and find Hylas, and then obviously Jason goes off with the Argo and leaves them behind. And it's kind of what that story is, which is based on Heracles, Polyphemus, and Hylas, and trying to find what happened to him. And so all three characters, Eric is a sort of contraction of Heracles, to Eric, and Polyphemus is a contraction of Paul, for Paul, and Hylas, I think, means matter in Greek, so we change it to Matt. So they all have like little bits of symbolism of that journey, and the color scheme is only the color scheme that's in the painting. So nothing, no colors that aren't in the painting aren't in the movie. So everything was trying to be made like the painting itself.
That is so cool. And this is why I love meeting folks like you to chat about these things. I am not a film academic by trade. I just turn up and talk about them every week, about the stuff we enjoy. But what you're doing there, Sam, is you're supporting independent film yourself. I'm gonna have to watch this again to go
Please,
through and
yeah,
like take all of these moments that you get in there. And it's so wonderful to hear the creative choices that you make, which you could watch a film on a surface level and just say, oh, their names are Sam and Matt and so on. And you just think, oh, perfectly acceptable names. But then understanding the decisions that you took and the choices that you made. And I do think increasingly this is not an artifact because it shouldn't live in the past. Should be something we think about with everything, that regardless of your media, when you're writing and creating things, these are the Easter eggs that you put in there for yourself. It shows the care you have and the craft you're putting into these things, and it makes what you create all the richer for it, rather than, oh, it was our exec producer's girlfriend's name at the time, and he wanted that to be in there. Having these choices, I think, makes our film experience have so many more layers to it, and we can enjoy these things on so many more levels. Genuinely, I'm going to have to watch this again with
please, yeah.
with these things in mind.
Even the girls, again, they're all the contractions of the siren names. Agalope is Opal, and Thalixapia is Pixie, and Pisanoe is Noe. So it's a contraction of their names. And even Denise is Menadice, who was Hylas's mother. In the story, so it is the story of it, a little bit. I mean, the fabrication, I think, is the I suppose the relationship between Eric and the mum. That was a fabrication, but I felt like, having been an actor and having trained as a sort of classical drama school, and having done quite a bit of Greek theatre as well, and having read a bit about it, I just thought some of those relationships, like when if you look at Medea or Electra or any of these incredible plays, you'd think they're in, this very high melodrama in a way. Do you know what I mean? That I mean that the stakes are never high, never high. Murdering your children and all that kind of stuff, and I felt that the relationships needed to reflect that. I felt I wanted to push that. So, and also I always felt in Greek films, you know, it's always spoken about let's say Achilles having his lover Patroclus, and it's never really um, realized in films as as a male gay relationship, that having a male lover. And there's lots of mentions of male lovers throughout Greek history, and it's never really reflected on screen. So that was also another reason for the Heracles and Hylas, and there was mention of that in the myth, that they might have been lovers, and that's why Heracles stays behind to try and find him, because he was in love with him and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just that was another part of it. It wasn't just we're trying to have a trend and make it an LGBTQ type movie, but it was like, let's follow what the source material is, and let's try and realize it a little bit. So that was the idea behind it. And obviously I don't overtly mention any of this. It's just there, if anyone is interested, or picks it apart at all in that way. But they may not, and that's fine. And obviously it's quite nice now the film's out, I can sort of talk about it a little bit, just because there was a lot of thought from all of us that went into the costumes, the color schemes, what lenses we wanted to shoot on, all that kind of stuff, to try and it was a very, 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 very small film, but I thought, well, look, I'm never going to get the debut ever again, so let's try
Go
and do
for it.
something that's different. That I didn't want it to be a completely linear movie, because I felt, again, it could be like any other movie, and we go, oh, that was great, and disappear. But if it sort of stayed with you, or at least there was some imagery, or there was a sequence that stayed with you, or a question that stayed with you, that bugged you, or you wanted to know more about it, then hopefully it would live in your subconscious a bit longer, and maybe it would hold up to a repeat viewing. That was the
Yeah,
that was
I
the
think there's some wonderful things to think about there, and like congratulations. I think a wonderfully subtle touch there with a great depth of background as well. We talk about adaptations of texts and so on are happening all the time. Obviously, old GDT himself just did a Frankenstein one. Obviously, quite a modern text in comparison to the
yeah.
to the things that you're adapting there. But I'm very surprised actually. I'm racking my brains thinking that like we do see in lots of we do see monsters being pulled from mythology, but so often it is just the figure of the monster, right? We look at what's vampire legends from Eastern Europe. We look at werewolves from Germany and so on as well, and across the world. We'll have debates on where some of those things originate from, I'm sure. But typically people pick the shape of the monster and then they put it into a modern setting to adapt so much of the original text as well. I think it's a tremendous amount of effort you're putting in. And Sam, I don't want to typecast you for the future here, but absolutely, if I had a couple of million hanging out in the back here, we would be finishing this recording, and I would be saying, "Hey, can I pay you to get something with the aesthetic and the modernity of like a cube, but can you do me the labyrinth and the Minotaur, please?" And I would turn up to watch that every day of the week, because I think also when we do see these big these pantheons of old mythology and so on created, I think with people who do have the time and the freedom and the budget to get to put these things together, so often we see them in ways that, oh, not a negative way, but in a Zack Snyder adopting a comic book kind of way, where it's like, right, I've got all these things. How many of them can I take and do in this one film
Yeah,
that I'm going to put together? Like, years and years of iconic storylines. Can I mash these all into one thing?
yeah,
To do it as just a one and focus on one element, one story, one creature, you're really giving yourself the opportunity to focus so much on that thing and explore it more fully with the
Well,
full idea
please.
that all these other things are on the table for other people or for you in the future.
Exactly. Well, I mean, please do put the spoilers up because we're obviously destroying all of
Yeah.
the mythology with it. But again, that was also a reason for the camera work in the film, in the sort of the Sam Raimi-esque type traveling in, is because the mythology of sirens is that they started as half women, half birds, and then they slowly morphed into being the sort of mermaid characters that we kind of associate with sirens. So really they have the ability to fly and to swim. So we sort of we were looking at how if we traveled underwater, it gave it away immediately, totally immediately. So by flying over the water, that's also makes it again slightly odd, but it's truthful to what the myth is that they used to fly. So that wouldn't, and I felt that the sound waves would want to travel over the water to hook the guys in, each time. So again, that that influenced the aesthetic of the film. And again, it was so I keep saying it was quite a small budget, so we didn't have budget to do lots of things. It was just what could we do well, and not do lots of things badly. Let's, as you're saying, do one thing well, and hopefully it reads okay. But we done the budget to do lots of things, and actually I think sometimes that's everyone says about Jaws, obviously, or if the shark doesn't work, then, and actually if the shark did work, we would have seen more of it, and would the film have been
Been as
as
good,
good?
yeah.
Probably not, is the answer.
I think we do
So
see some great creative choices from having to make decisions and from having to work within your means. And I know in this example I'm going to pull, we're still talking about infinity times the budget of a true indie movie, but my film of the year from a couple of years ago and one of the sequels I'm most excited about of all movies is Godzilla minus one, which
oh
tremendous,
oh
more money than you or I'll ever see, I'm sure, but the for a film of that quality to be made on what, a
15 million,
tenth
isn't it?
of what a tenth of what a huge blockbuster is
That was
creating. And
incredible. That that,
yeah,
that film, whenever I describe that to someone, I'm like, it's like if Spielberg was Japanese in beginning, it's like Saving Private Ryan, Jaws, and Jurassic Park all in one movie.
yeah,
But each one of the stories would be great on its own, but all together, they're just it's just brilliant, and the practical effects aspect of it is so wonderfully done as well with the digital. I just think that yeah, I absolutely love that film. I thought that was a
yeah.
my favorite. It's probably my favorite Godzilla apart from the original. I think both those two are the best.
And it just shows what you can, that you can do incredible things without $200 million, and you can times that by even more when you look at truly independent films. Because I'm gonna say, like, I knew from our conversations and from working with your team before we saw the movie, this is an independent film. I know not to expect a budget of millions in there, but not just saying it because you're here. It doesn't. It doesn't look like a cheap movie that you had no money for, and you were able to produce shots which I think are effective, and you're able to show things. And for me, it's because you had to make a choice and you had to make a decision. You can't do everything. You don't have the ability to go to your visual effects team and say, right, model everything
Yeah,
and I will choose the two I like at the end. You have to really think about what you're doing. I'm sure you have to agonize over every shot, every angle, and get the things you really want because you can only shoot for a certain number of days even. Like you have
yeah,
to
yeah.
think about every choice that you make, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the film. I mean, we only had the location for basically 7 days. So we had to shoot 90% of the movie is in 7 days. I mean, we did bits in studio as well afterwards. We did little pickups here and there, and we used quite a bit of virtual production, the screen technology for things as well to help, increase the production value of the story, which was fabulous. And they're the days we actually had some time, whereas when we were at the house, it was two takes and you move on if you're lucky, type thing. It was so fast. So it was quite a feat. And also the other part of it was that I because I work in as a director for a company called Big Finish Productions that do all the sort of audio adventures of Doctor Who with all the other doctors that are not on television anymore, from Tom Baker, who's still around, all the way up to now Jodie Whittaker coming in, and so I work a lot in the sound world. So I knew that, again, by picking the sirens, I would be able to keep them off screen, but we hear them and we hear what they do, and so that I knew that the sonic aspect of it was going to be sort of the special effect, as well as much as we can do visually. I just knew that so much was going to rely on the sound design and the music, really, but the sound design particularly.
Oh, and having revealed that, I apologize for not knowing it in advance. Big Finish doing some wonderful work on Doctor Who. I believe you'll probably know, well, you may have met and worked with one of our former guests as well. I know Georgia Cook, who
Yeah,
listeners will know from our oh, now I've lost the name of the film. It will come back to me. Grave Encounters.
yeah,
Georgia
yeah.
joined us for the Grave Encounters episode.
Well,
Writes a number of those.
I directed her podcast series, the Homeward Foundation, which is a modern sort of retelling, or not. It's a modern adaptation of Dracula set now, and it's sort of done as a found footage piece with Rebecca Root as the lead and Sean Carlson. So we did a whole podcast series, which you can get, I think, anywhere now. It's everywhere, and it's just done very well. So yeah, I
Yeah, what
directed.
you've done is you've clicked a couple of pieces together. I know the Homeward Foundation well, backed it on Kickstarter. It's
There we
a
go.
yeah, like wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful work. I've got a couple of episodes left. I know
because
George is
I'm in it.
certainly
I
thinking
play
about a
Arthur.
follow-up.
Yeah, I play.
Look at this. All the pieces are coming together. I mean, let's take a brief pause. This is a series that deserves a little bit of attention. Sorry, future Ben, when you're putting all the notes together. I'm gonna have so many links for you to put in the show notes here. But
This is great for
yeah,
Georgia and Theo. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
just
great
good
work.
promotion.
Great work on that. Like really wonderful series. I'm a big fan of audio dramas anyway, because it is a underexposed. There is still so much originality. You can do wonderful creative work. And of course, they do cost time and money to produce and to make sure people are paid and can do the work. But creatively, it's very freeing as well, isn't it? That you haven't got to think, how is this gonna look? How am I going to make this real? It's some of the purest forms of writing you can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, a well placed sound effect really fills in all the blanks for you. And so, you know, I think that's what's been very helpful as a filmmaker, really, is knowing that, because I've done so many Doctor Who's and things, and units and the Avengers and Thunderbirds and all these type of great shows and IP. And in the audio world, you're like, it just, you know, just a bit of, I don't know, a well placed sort of cup going down or something tells you something, or a car door opening, or a bit of effort getting into the car, getting out of the car. It's what the vocal quality is that tells you the environment, the effort, the strenuousness. I mean, it's a really it's such an expressive medium, and I think that we forget that in film in a way. Sometimes we're very focused on the visuals, but the sound does so much for you. I mean, if you think of Star Wars without the sound design, I mean, it would just be, I mean, when people think of Star Wars, probably one of the first things they think of is
The
lightsaber.
first
It's
thing I
literally
thought
that.
of.
Probably the first thing. And you're like, it's not a character in a way. It's not, it's a sound, which is incredible, isn't it? So I think you know, I love audio dramas, and I think it's great. And I worked in it as an actor, and then suddenly years later, after directing a play, one of the an actor friend of mine, he was writing for Big Finish. I didn't even know he was doing it, and then he asked if I would direct his audio drama. And so my first one was directing powerhouse David Warner and Celia Imrie. So I was absolutely breathless,
Wow.
but they were amazing. And so that's one thing that's really, really helpful for me, is I get to work with some incredible talent from TV and film and theatre, and build relationships with people, and get to work with lots of incredible talent all the time. And so but in the film world, it is very different, because the
Yeah.
budgets are different, and the contracts are different, and who you can get is going to be different. And obviously, with something like The Waterhouse slash The Drowned, um it I knew we were going to do 7 days, and it was going to be literally like going into the trenches, because it was going to be really long days. And we had to get, I think, 8 pages in a day to even
To
finish the
keep to
movie.
time. Yeah.
I knew that I had to know everyone in the film, really, because what I was asking was going to be very, very difficult given the time constraints. So, you're working with people that, you're friendly with, you've worked with before, and having a star is probably wouldn't do it for the budget, but also you wouldn't get away with the time frame that you need them for, most likely. So yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And just to finish off on the writing perspective of these two different styles of writing, I feel like the stuff that you do in both writing and direction from an audio piece as well, and sort of the level of craft you've also put into your film work as well, it feels there is the, in my opinion, correct and opposite trend to what you're trying to do with Netflix producing second screen movies where you are having to explicitly saying like, "Oh, let me just put my coffee cup down so I can talk to you properly," and you're saying it out loud for someone who's not paying attention. Whereas in your work in audio and the subtleties you try and put in your film as well, you think about what can you, and it's fundamental writing 101. What can I show someone instead of telling them? You can put the sound of them putting their drink down, or if someone, I heard in an audio drama that I bounced off. I won't name it because I'm being critical, but like someone said, "Hey, come and give me a hug here," and then you hear them embrace. And my immediate thought of that for someone who's worked in audio as well is, I didn't need you to say, "Come and give me a hug." You could have just said, "Come here," and then you have the sound
Yeah,
of
yeah,
them,
yeah.
their voices closer together. The things that you can do with subtle changes to save words on a page and to make dialogue and interaction feel like it is in real life.
I think my one of my most hated things in films is when people come in and say, "Hey, big brother," or "Hey, little sister." I'm like, I don't think. I mean, I've of all of my friends or whatever who have siblings, I've never heard them ever refer to their brother or sister like that. But it's just a trope to tell the audience, "Oh, they're brothers or they're sisters." And I'm
Yeah.
like, is there a, do we have to have it spelled out for us? Could we not see it? Could we not maybe, guess that they might be siblings? I mean, I see it all the time, and I'm just whenever I see it in a script, I just go, "Oh God, can't we show it? Do we have
Yeah,
to?"
but like you call your brother properly. You go, "Right, dickhead."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Or whatever. Yeah, exactly. But I might introduce him and go, "Oh, this is my brother."
yeah,
That's about it. But I don't call him, "Hey, little brother," or I just don't. I mean, that's maybe people do. Maybe I'm completely wrong. It's like Americans that don't say goodbye in films on phones. They just hang up, and you're like, "Bye. I just had something." Oh, okay. I had something
no,
else to say.
you say goodbye at least 8 times before you hang up.
Yeah, but they never do they? I mean, I watched this. I really enjoyed the series, The Beast in Me. I don't know if you've seen that.
No,
It's with
no.
Matt Reese and Claire Danes. I've just finished it. It was great fun, but it's a classic. Those two problems happen. There's a brother moment, but there is also no one says goodbye. No one. Like, you could be like, I had something else I was going to call. So and you've just hung up. Maybe I'll just call you back and also this.
I
So
also love these things because I think when we get subtlety, even when we have a shared language, the cultural differences between looking at a British piece of film or audio or anything versus an American one. And this is what's given me a great deal of familiarity. I've been a huge fan of the Philippou brothers films over the last couple of years. Bring Her Back this year is definitely going to be troubling my top 10. And that's another third subtlety, whereas I don't know how American audiences respond to it in the same way. But for me as a British audience member, there is obviously a degree of difference in Australian culture, but to me, it's far more familiar than an American one.
That's true. Yeah, it is absolutely true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've not seen it yet. I missed it in the cinema, and I try and see everything I can in the cinema because, like, being a filmmaker, you know, our monitors that we're looking at are the size or bigger than usually than laptops, and
yeah.
like so I kind of want to. I mean, obviously TVs are bigger, but you're never making the film really with the idea of it being watched on someone's laptop or TV maybe, but I try and go to the cinema. So, but I'm gonna have to watch it on
You've got to see it in
yeah,
these
yeah,
films in as large a screen
yeah,
as you can. I joke about it that the only time I've managed to see both of the new phenomenal Dune adaptations over the last few years have been, I am sure, as the director intended when I was on transatlantic flights. So I've watched them on a screen the size of a postage stamp in the back of someone's chair. So maybe I've lost some of the brilliance there as well. But yeah, do catch Bring Her Back if you
I
can.
will. I will
Like,
absolutely do that. Yeah.
Talk to Me was obviously phenomenal beforehand as well. And touching that cultural element there,
Mhm.
I was locked into that film from culturally from one of the first lines when the brother turns up to the house party and the thing he shouts to get everyone's attention is "Oi." I'm like, okay, these are my people.
Yeah, I know this. I know this. Yeah. Oi. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I mean, this has been wonderful. I could quite happily spend the rest of the morning hanging out. Before we go to some final
Yeah.
questions, let's give everyone one more reminder. Let's do both. Where can they catch both The Drowned and your audio work?
So the audio work for Big Finish, you'd go to bigfinish.com and you can buy either they do physical media still. So they own a
Oh, come
CD.
on.
If people want CDs, you can get them there. With all the old Doctors and new adventures and spin-offs and new IP and all that kind of stuff. There's I mean, where do you start? It's enormous. There's so much there. But you can go to bigfinish.com for that. The Homeward Foundation, I think, is on pretty much all of the major podcast places, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or I can't think of them now. It's terrible.
Wherever you get your podcasts,
Wherever you get your podcast,
it
it will
turns
be
up.
there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely be there. It got a good review in the Guardian as well, which was nice. And then The Drowned is on Apple TV, Amazon, Sky Store, Rakuten, Virgin Media, and YouTube Movies. And it's all at the moment. It's on the TVOD, so it's a rental. And any help to for independent film is greatly appreciated because it is tough out there. So and the more that people watch it and download it and rent it. Helps the movie enormously when it ends up, streaming and all those kind of things later on. So yeah, if anyone
Awesome.
can, that'd be great. Thank you.
Brilliant. And of course, most importantly, for people wanting to keep up on your news with what's next, you alluded to some things that you're working on next. Where is the best place for them to keep an eye on your comings and goings? Social media is not what it used to be.
No, I mean, like I suppose a few things. Probably Instagram. We use quite a lot. So my Instagram, but also our company Take the Shot Films. So you can see posts of what we're doing, and we this year we did a couple of documentaries, a couple of landmark documentaries, one on Thunderbirds, one on Space 1999, and the next more updates will be coming about the next feature, hopefully. In the middle of next year is hopefully when we're starting, hopefully, to shoot, touch wood and all those things, given schedules and budgets and things. But yeah, on Instagram, on YouTube, our YouTube channel, we post things on there occasionally, and our website, which is just taketheshotfilms.com. There's lots of links.
Amazing. Lots of things for people to catch up on. My personal first stop is going to be surgery
Oh
on that
yeah.
YouTube channel. And we'll go from there. Right. We're hosting a horror podcast and we've got to touch on a couple of other things, but I have a couple of the big hitter questions for you. Number one, I'm trying to buck a trend a little bit. We may have seen a famous director recently with something to promote, talking about his least favorite actors and directors in the industry. We're going to keep it on the positive side. We're going to go the other way. Tell me about you as a filmmaker or you as a film fan, directors, actors, name you, take your pick. Who are
Oh
your favorites? Who inspires you the most?
gosh, I mean, it's changed because I started in this industry as an actor, and I trained as an actor and at the Drama Centre London, and I worked solely as an actor for like 20 years, and then I've only started directing in the last sort of 10, 15 years, and I've slowly become more of a director. So I mean, both. It's really hard, but I mean, as an actor, I mean, like I think. Derek Jacobi, I remember watching him doing I Claudius and Breaking the Code, and he was just extraordinary. And he's one of the reasons I think I wanted to be an actor. Anthony Hopkins, I think, is just astonishing. I think that his level of vulnerability. I mean, he always makes me cry, pretty much. And when he's in, maybe not in the bigger Marvel movies and things. Although he elevates those films and he
Yeah.
elevates things like I mean, like, I thought Westworld was incredible and he was brilliant. But I mean, yeah, Anthony Hopkins I think is fabulous, and incredibly inspiring. I think Guillermo del Toro, as I think he's a wonderful filmmaker, but I think even more than a filmmaker, I think he's such an incredibly inspiring auteur and orator about film, about
Hmm.
making film, and about following your your dreams and sort of listening to yourself and great practical advice as well. I mean, I do love a lot of the big heavy hitters. I will always go and see a Nolan film. I want to see what because I feel like he's kind of the
Yeah.
modern Kubrick. He's been given whatever budget he wants to make whatever he wants, and obviously, having made The Drowned, The Odyssey is obviously very interesting to me to go and watch this. So I'll always, I love the Spielbergs and the James Cameron. I'll always go and see something, and Tarantino and all these people. Paul Thomas Anderson. I thought One Battle After Another was amazing. I just thought that was such an incredible movie. It was one of my favorites of the year. Um, I love Jeremy Saulnier, who did Blue Ruin. I think he's fabulous. I think whatever again, I'm always so interested in what he does. I saw a lovely film last night, actually, Rental Family by, is it Hikari? I think I'm getting it right, the director, with Brendan Fraser. Um, that was a lovely, lovely little film. But yeah, God, it's really difficult. It's sort of, I mean, as a kid, it was Arnie.
Yeah, I mean,
know,
still to
it,
this,
it's
still
still
to
to
this
me,
day.
Arnold Schwarzenegger to me is like, he was my hero as a kid growing up, and he's sort of a hero in my life in a way. Like, I mean, being such a, the climate activist that he is, and and sort of, I don't know, inspiring people to be, fitter and better, and I don't know, I just, and being a, so successful in all um areas of work that he picked, whether it was bodybuilding, then acting, then in government, and he was successful as in property before any of it as well. It's quite inspiring. I think
Legitimate
Stallone,
choice, I think. I think people almost a bit of an apology. I know he's an action movie star. Like he's done some phenomenal, like
yeah,
some all-time roles. And you're right, like comes across as nobody's perfect, but he's done some
yeah,
incredible things and he
oh yeah.
has some very positive messages.
I mean, it's like, I suppose a kid of the '80s, you grew up with all those. I mean, like, I'm not saying I'm on the same politics as Stallone, but obviously, I think, for example, like Rocky, like was such an inspiring character, and what
Mm.
he did to make Rocky. I think it's what are those people's struggles to get things made and done so well. And I think that I'm always looking for inspiration to keep going, because it's a tough business, because no one's going to open the door for you. You've got to create your own door in a way, step through. And I think that feels more true all the time. So I think it's whoever I'm watching at the moment is doing well, and is inspiring to watch. Whatever filmmakers, like I think Joel Edgerton is fantastic. I
Mm.
think as an actor and as a filmmaker, I think he's just a really, really interesting. And then obviously TV, Vince Gilligan. I mean, I'll turn up and watch anything that he writes or is involved in. I think he's incredible. I'm enjoying Pluribus very much at the moment. So,
Oh, I haven't
you know,
started it yet. I've heard
oh,
it's
it's great.
phenomenal.
It's great. It's just, and that was also, you know, a bit of inspiration for The Drowned, and probably my work is those things where it's show don't tell, where you're seeing, and that's what I wanted to do with The Drowned, for example, is go. I wanted to see how long we could do um, no dialogue for, and we pushed it, I think, to like 11 or 12 minutes at the beginning of the movie, to kind of go, I love watching characters behaving and going through a problem, or dealing with something, and we're with them on that journey, that silence of what are they doing, and then hit them with loads of dialogue, which Better Call Saul was completely that, which was
Yeah.
fantastic. And so yeah, I
Oh, you
mean,
see,
those
isn't
ones.
this nice, sir? We haven't talked about anyone we don't like. This is just
Yeah.
all positive things that you can check out more. I mean, we're doing our best to redress the balance here.
Yes, I mean, like, it is upsetting, because I do love Tarantino's movies, but yeah, I think that what's the who benefits out of that? It's
Yeah,
just
I think to
yeah,
be honest, I think as much as a thing you put in certain questions in front of, you put in certain questions in front of people, and I do think there is a slight obsession in some forms of coverage or awards or anything like that. I mean, it hasn't dropped at the time of our conversation, but in this week's Horror Hangout episode, we talk about sometimes we will encounter a film and we don't like elements about it, or it turns out we're disappointed in it. But the closest we ever do to being, to talking about something we didn't enjoy was to say that we were disappointed in something or that something didn't. That is the nature of
yeah,
doing a show that provides review content. But at no point do we ever pick out in our end of the year conversations we have. We may talk about something we've been disappointed in, but we're not going to do and this was the worst movie of the year because who does that? Who does that benefit?
Yeah,
Nobody.
it's very difficult, and also, you know, still being an actor occasionally now, but I mean, like, you know, when you're doing something and you know, if someone reviews you badly, like if someone says, "Oh, they're terribly miscast" or "They're awful," it's very crushing for the actor, you know, to go, particularly if you're on stage, right? Because then
Yeah.
you've got to get up and do that again every night for maybe 6 months, being told that you're, you know, not good in it or not right for it or whatever. And obviously everyone's entitled to their opinions. I totally understand that, but that is very, very, it's difficult. And so I think there's these type of conversations that, you know, what Tarantino said is not, you know, it's going to be hurtful. It's going to be
Yeah.
very, very hurtful because, you know, I think if the actor is no longer around or with us, that's a different thing, isn't it? So, and he usually doesn't review new movies, does he? He only talks about movies that
Yeah.
in the
Big like
past.
big all timers, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which, and he is quite critical of those, and I'm like, okay, fine, because they're no longer around to talk about it or defend themselves or whatever, and it's just his opinion on things. But I think when someone's around, very much around and living and working and at the top of the game, it's quite difficult. Um,
Yeah.
but hopefully there'll be a lot of love towards him anyway, because of this, because he is a great
Yeah.
actor.
Exactly. Right, to finish off,
Yes.
Samuel, the hardest question I have for anyone who comes on and joins us. The pressure is on, especially
Yeah.
as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
It's film night. You're having people round. You've been on both sides of the camera, so they're turning to you to choose the movie for a horror hangout of your own. Mixed crowd. So mixed crowd are coming round. You can have a single film, you can have a double feature if you want. What are you putting on?
And is it horror?
It is horror night. Come on.
Okay. 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 I mean, and they've have they not seen this film? Is this
You can't
doesn't
predict.
can't
Maybe they
predict?
have, maybe they haven't. You've got a mixed group of friends coming round. They're not aficionados. They're not going to be telling you, "Oh, I've seen everything, mate. Give me something different." So they're just saying, "We trust you to set the vibes of the evening. What are you putting on?"
Oh, I mean, that's difficult, man. I wish you told me this before. I'd had a proper think.
The
But I
pressure is
like that
part
you've
of it.
asked me. Put it
I
on. The
need
pressure is part.
instinct.
Okay, well, I would say instinctively. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was The Shining,
Why
because I
not?
just think every time I watch that, I see something new. I learn more about filmmaking or about something. There's more details in it that I didn't notice the last time. So I think that, you know, that I know that's probably lots of people say that. I'm sorry, it's a very boring answer. Um, but if I'm allowed to do a double feature, and then let's go the opposite end of the scale. I mean, I loved Brain Dead. I thought that was hilarious and brilliant.
Yes.
And I think that having, you know, something dark and quite full on, which is quite, and then something hilarious, and we can go in either order. But maybe let's go polar opposites there. Maybe that would be.
Yeah.
But my choice for today, you've asked me today, that's my answer today. If you ask me tomorrow, maybe it'd be a different answer. But that's
I
today.
mean, it's your house. You don't even have to do them back to back. You can have two screening rooms and get people to choose their room if you
Use
want.
a room.
Harder
Yeah.
for you to host, of course,
Yeah.
but
Well, I hope that's
yeah,
a
no,
sufficient
no,
answer, really.
yeah, no requirement to hand in your horror credentials. I think that passes muster. Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. Well,
Well, Samuel, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me
thank
this
you for
morning.
having
It's
me
been
on.
lovely to chat. I've got homework to do. I've got some catching up to do. Everyone else, thank you for listening. Do check out those films. As Samuel says, independent film needs all the love it can get at the moment.
Really
And
does.
obviously, you can listen to lots of the podcasts he's worked on.
And please,
Homewood
please rate,
Foundation for
yeah,
free.
please rate and review as well, because that helps enormously. I mean, obviously, if you hate it, maybe don't rate and review it. But if
Only if you like stuff.
and if you like it, yeah, please. But yeah, if you can, that would be great.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. Thank you for everyone else for listening, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.